Have you ever wondered why you walk into a motorcycle dealership and sometimes see a bike that's from 1 or 2 years ago? These bikes are totally brand new, especially some big name models, but somehow the dealership is unable to sell them. And what's wild is that no one's talking about the real reason why. Not even the dealerships themselves. Well, if you're curious, look no further because we're going to uncover a secret dealerships have that they don't want you to know. Here's something most people don't realize. That wall of motorcycles you see when you step into a dealership is not a sign of booming business. In fact, it might be the exact opposite. That showroom packed with fresh models, all spotless, lined up like soldiers and glowing under the lights, could be the visual equivalent of a dealership crying for help. Because in reality, a lot of those bikes aren't supposed to be there. See, motorcycle dealerships don't get to handpick every bike that shows up in their showroom. A lot of them are stuck with inventory they didn't even ask for, and that's where the trouble begins. Let's say a dealer knows that their local crowd is into street fighters and mid-weight adventure bikes. Riders around there want something like the Yamaha MT-07, the Suzuki V-Strom 800, maybe a Triumph Trident. Simple, affordable daily ride kind of machines. But what shows up instead? 3 giant full-dress cruisers with chrome everywhere and price tags north of 25 grand. Maybe a couple of off-season dirt bikes nobody's thinking about until next year. And of course, a bright yellow sport bike with a design nobody asked for. The dealer didn't order that stuff because they wanted it. They got it because the manufacturer said, "This is what we're sending you." So now they're stuck playing sales Tetris, trying to figure out how to move bikes that don't fit the riding culture, don't match local demand, and in some cases haven't had serious buyer interest in years. The worst part? That unsold inventory piles up year after year. Some bikes sit so long they become showroom fossils. 2021 or even 2020 models, still brand new, but now completely overshadowed by updated versions that just launched. No one wants to be the guy paying new bike money for a model that's 2 or 3 years behind, even if it's never been ridden. And this creates a vicious cycle. These bikes sit because nobody wants them, but they can't move them easily because the dealership already looks overloaded with too much inventory. So when it's time to request bikes that riders actually do want, like an entry-level dual sport or a middleweight tourer, the dealer gets denied or shorted because the system thinks they haven't sold through what they already have. It's like ordering black t-shirts because your customers love them and getting sent a box of neon orange ones instead. Now you're stuck trying to convince people that orange is the new black, when deep down you know they just wanted something simple that works. This is what most riders don't see, a system where dealers aren't in control, stuck trying to flip motorcycles they didn't believe in from the start, while real demand gets ignored in favor of spreadsheet logic. And the longer these bikes sit, the more they lose value, not just in dollars, but in perception. Riders see dust gathering, batteries dying, plastic yellowing, and they start thinking, if it's been sitting this long, there's probably a reason. And just like that, a perfectly good motorcycle becomes unsellable, all because someone far away decided what a local rider should want instead of what they actually want. So you've got these bikes sitting on the floor, not because they're bad, but because they were never right for the local market in the first place. And this raises a bigger question. How does this keep happening? How does a dealership in the middle of Montana end up with bikes that look more at home in downtown Miami? It all comes down to a disconnect, a massive industry-wide communication breakdown between the people who build motorcycles and the people who actually sell them. See, when manufacturers decide what models go to which dealerships, they're not always basing those decisions on real-world demand. Instead, they're leaning heavily on centralized sales data, spreadsheets, algorithms, and historical trends that don't always reflect what's currently happening on the ground. What the system sees is dealer X sold Y number of cruisers last year, so let's give them more cruisers. But what it doesn't see is that a lot of those cruisers took forever to move, were sold at steep discounts, or were traded in by riders who later said, "Yeah, I wish I'd gone with something lighter." And if that's not bad enough, sometimes the data being used is outdated or pulled from regions that make zero sense for the local area. The distribution team might be sitting in a corporate office on the East Coast, making decisions for small-town dealerships out west without ever setting foot in those communities. They're not seeing what riders are talking about at meetups. They're not hearing the guy walk in and ask, "Do you have anything under 500 pounds?" Or, "I'm looking for something I can commute with but still take on a weekend trip." That kind of organic feedback isn't getting back to the people sending out the inventory. And here's where it starts to hurt even more. Dealers can't always push back. Sure, a dealership might tell the regional rep, "Hey, people around here are asking for lightweight, fuel-efficient bikes. Give me more CB500Xs, MT-03s, or maybe some dual sports like the KLX 300. But what do they get instead? A high-end cafe racer and 3 versions of a bike with bar-end mirrors and retro styling no one in town has ever even Googled. And why? Because the factory's priorities aren't always aligned with what's moving locally. They're trying to push certain models to hit production targets, meet internal sales goals, or clear out warehouse space for the next model year. Dealers are treated like the endpoint of a pipeline, not active partners in shaping demand. That's the real problem. The people who actually talk to customers every day, the sales guys, the parts department, the service writers who hear what riders complain about, are completely out of the loop when it comes to deciding what gets shipped to their own shop. And the customers, they feel it too. When someone walks in ready to buy and hears, "Sorry, we don't have that model, but we do have this one," you can feel the air leave the room. The customer doesn't want a sales pitch. They want the bike they've been researching, the one they saw on forums, the one their buddy just bought across the state. And when they can't get it, they don't settle, they leave. Some start looking for used bikes online. Some travel out of state. Some just give up. Meanwhile, the dealership is stuck staring at bikes they didn't ask for, watching another month go by as their stock grows older, more outdated, and harder to sell. It's death by disconnection. But here's the kicker. Even when a dealership does finally move one of these mismatched bikes, the sale sends the wrong signal back up the chain. The system sees, "Oh, that bike sold, must be working," so the factory sends another one, and the cycle repeats. You've got to remember, this isn't just about mismatched bikes, it's about a system that's slowly eroding trust between riders and dealerships. Riders stop going in because they assume they never have what I want. Dealers feel powerless to stock the bikes they know their customers are asking for, and all the while, manufacturers pat themselves on the back because they moved product, even if that product is now collecting cobwebs behind the finance desk. So now you've got dealerships sitting on the wrong bikes, and they know it. They've got the feedback, they've heard the customer requests, and they've even got local data proving what moves and what doesn't. And when they finally try to do something about it, to market those bikes to get them out the door, they run straight into a brick wall. Because in this industry, even marketing is controlled from the top down. See, you'd think the simple solution here would be to get creative. Dealers could start offering local promotions, bundle deals, throw in riding gear, or slash prices to make room for what their customers actually want. But here's what most riders don't realize. Many motorcycle brands won't allow dealers to market their inventory freely. It starts with pricing. Most major manufacturers have a strict minimum advertised price, or MAP policy. That means even if a dealer wants to run a killer deal on an aging bike just to get it off the floor, they're not allowed to advertise that lower price publicly. They can do it behind the scenes, maybe whisper a deal in the back office, but they can't list it online. They can't post it on social media, and they sure as hell can't blast it on Facebook Marketplace or YouTube with a catchy clearance blowout headline. And if they do, they risk penalties, or worse, losing their status with the manufacturer. And that's just the start. A lot of brands also control how bikes can be visually marketed. Dealers are often required to use sanitized, brand-approved images, even if they have the bike right there in the showroom. You want to snap a real photo of that dusty 2022 Cruiser and show how clean it still is? Nope. Corporate says you have to use the staged glamour shot from 2 years ago, the one that doesn't even match the bike's current condition or color. So now imagine trying to move a bike that no one wanted in the first place, and all you can say is, "It's available." No deals, no urgency, no creativity. Just the same cookie-cutter listing every other dealer's using, even if you're willing to be flexible behind the scenes. That kills any competitive edge, and in an age where buyers can scroll through hundreds of listings with the tap of a finger, blending in is the same as being invisible. It doesn't stop there either. Some manufacturers limit the platforms dealers can advertise on. Want to list the bike on Craigslist, OfferUp, or Facebook groups where your actual customers are browsing? Better check with corporate. Some dealers have even been told to take down listings because they were off-brand, even if those listings were actually working. And all of this, every restriction, every approval process, every watered-down advertisement, adds time. Time that bike is just sitting there, becoming harder to sell with each passing week. Meanwhile, customers are browsing the internet thinking, why aren't any of these bikes going on sale? They don't know that behind the scenes, the dealer wants to offer that discount. They want to throw in free service or gear, or just price it $1,000 under MSRP and be done with it. But the system won't let them. And when they can't move those old bikes, it affects how much new inventory they're allowed to request. The manufacturers look at slow sales and assume the dealer isn't doing enough, not realizing they've got both hands tied behind their backs and duct tape over their mouths. It's like trying to win a race with a parachute strapped to your bike. This is what most riders never see. How dealership marketing isn't really in the dealer's control. It's filtered, limited, and watered down until it's so bland that nobody clicks, nobody cares, and nothing moves. Not because the bike is awful, but because the people who know how to sell it aren't allowed to do their job. So while some frustrated rider scrolls past that 1-year-old model and mutters, "Why is this still full price?" the dealer's sitting behind the counter thinking the same thing, and still, the bike sits. Now, let's say somehow a dealership manages to beat the odds. They're stuck with a bike they didn't ask for. They've got no control over the pricing. Their marketing hands are tied. But maybe, just maybe, a curious rider walks in anyways. They saw the bike online, did their homework, and figured they'd give it a look. This is the dealer's moment to shine, right? Well, not quite, because now we hit the next roadblock in this long broken process: test rides, or more accurately, the lack of them. See, cars are easy. You walk into a dealership, show your license, and you're behind the wheel in minutes. But motorcycles? Totally different story. Most bike dealers still don't offer test rides, and when they do, it's often limited to 1 or 2 demo units, usually not the model you're actually interested in. Now, if you're a seasoned rider who's bought multiple bikes, maybe you can make peace with that, but if you're a new rider, or someone switching categories, not being able to ride the thing first is a huge turnoff. Imagine dropping 13 grand on a motorcycle you've never actually felt in motion. Would you do it? Most people won't, and dealerships know that. They've seen it play out 1,000 times. A customer comes in excited, sits on the bike, loves the look, starts asking about financing, and then hits the wall. Can I take it for a spin? Sorry, we don't allow test rides on this model. And just like that, the mood shifts. The customer goes cold. Maybe they pretend to think it over, say they'll come back, maybe take a brochure, but they're gone. Probably for good. And there's the frustrating part. Dealers aren't always to blame for this policy. Sometimes it's insurance. Premiums for test ride coverage can be insanely high, especially for bikes in the 800cc plus range. Other times it's corporate restrictions. Some manufacturers won't allow test rides on brand new models at all unless it's a demo fleet sent specifically for events, and those demo fleets are few and far between. And even when the dealer wants to let customers ride the bike, they often don't have a duplicate unit to spare. They've got one model in stock, and it's not just a display piece, it's for sale. So if someone drops it on a test ride, that bike becomes a damaged unit, and now they have to discount it or move it as used. It's a risky game, and in today's market, where margins are already razor thin, most dealers just can't afford that kind of gamble. The irony? A single test ride could be the difference between a bike sitting for 18 months and one getting sold today. Riders connect with bikes emotionally. They want to feel it, the throttle response, the riding position, the way it corners. Specs on a brochure don't do that. YouTube reviews don't do that. Even sitting on the bike in a showroom doesn't come close. And with today's bikes being more specialized than ever, it's not just about do I like this model. It's about does this exact version of this model work for my body, my style, and my riding goals. And when there's no way to find out unless you gamble 5 figures, most people don't take the risk. Instead, they start hunting for used bikes from private sellers, the kind who will let you test ride, or at least let you feel it out in a parking lot. Or worse, they hold off entirely. One no at the dealership is enough to keep that money in their pocket for another year. And meanwhile, guess what happens? That same brand new motorcycle that nearly got sold, it just sits there. The paint still shines, the tank is still spotless, but underneath that perfect finish is a machine that's slowly being forgotten. One more bike trapped in a sales system that refuses to trust the one thing that could actually move it, letting people ride it. Now let's step back for a second. The dealership is carrying the wrong bikes. They weren't allowed to market them creatively. They couldn't offer a test ride. And now, after all that, they finally get someone interested, a rider who's done the research, watched the reviews, and maybe even sat on the bike in person. But here's where it falls apart. The price. Because the second that rider hears the number, boom, the deal blows up before it ever had a chance. And this isn't just about being cheap. This is about a massive shift in the way buyers view value, a shift that the motorcycle industry hasn't fully caught up with yet. See, buyers today are hyper-informed. They've got CycleTrader, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Reddit, YouTube, and forums all at their fingertips. Within minutes, they know exactly what the same bike sold for in 5 different cities. They've got dealers offering crazy year-end deals in other states. They've watched breakdowns of depreciation curves, and they've read hundreds of comments from riders saying, "Don't ever pay MSRP, wait for a deal." So when they walk into their local shop and hear $13,499 plus fees, it's not just sticker shock, it's sticker disbelief. Their brain instantly floods with counterpoints, but I saw one on Facebook for $11K. This bike's been out since 2022, why hasn't the price dropped? Why is this base model almost the same price as a used Ducati with 2,000 miles? And here's where the real problem kicks in. The dealership can't budge, even if they wanted to. Even if the sales guy is staring at a bike that's been sitting for 600 days and would love nothing more than to knock $1,000 off and close the deal, their hands are tied. MAP policies, manufacturer agreements, fear of brand penalties. And if they do go under the radar and offer a better price, they often can't advertise it publicly, which means they're still losing leads to dealers who can. Meanwhile, the customer is confused. They think the dealership is just being greedy, but what they don't see is how little room there actually is with that price tag. Most dealers make a tiny margin on the actual sale of the bike, sometimes under 10%. The rest is meant to come from accessories, service packages, and financing. So if they drop the price too far, they're not just cutting into profits, they're going negative. And it gets even more brutal when the customer starts comparing to the used market. Why pay full price for a new sport bike that's been sitting for 2 years when a guy 3 towns over is selling the same bike with 800 miles and an exhaust upgrade for $4,000 less? Add to that the rising cost of insurance, registration, setup fees, dealer fees, taxes, and suddenly, a bike that looks affordable on paper becomes a hard sell in the real world. Even financing is a hurdle. Interest rates are higher, credit standards are higher, monthly payments aren't as attractive as they used to be, and many buyers walk in expecting that $13,000 bike to cost them maybe $150 a month, only to find out it's more like $300 plus after fees, taxes, and interest. The result? They back out. Or they tell the dealer, "I'll think about it," and then they go home, hop online, and start watching videos about older bikes with more personality, more mods, and less financial pain. Meanwhile, that brand new bike? Still there, still gleaming under the showroom lights, still untouched, because what used to be a brag has now become a red flag. Riders start thinking, if no one's bought this in 2 years, there's gotta be something wrong with it, and that perception, fail or not, kills the deal before it starts. And that's the heart of the price expectation bomb. It's not that riders don't want to buy new bikes, it's that the system we're walking into is completely out of sync with the real-world marketplace. They're expecting deals, flexibility, transparency, but what they find is rigidity, silence, and frustration. And at the end of the day, that's why new motorcycles just sit. It's not just about money, it's about the disconnect between the old school dealership model and the new school rider mindset. And until that gap closes, the showroom floor is going to keep looking like a museum full of perfectly good bikes, with no one riding them. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. See you in the next one.